Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining the Boredom Club today to our AI Summit, featuring executives from top tech companies revolutionizing the world as we speak. My name is Yossi Garmazi, and I'm joined also by a good friend of mine, Amado Vargas. Amado.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
So today we are fortunate enough to interview none other than Ely Abramovitch, co-founder and CEO of Legion Security, a company that revolutionizes cybersecurity by helping organizations detect, prevent, and respond to threats faster and smarter using AI tools. Before Legion, Ely also worked at Microsoft, where he helped develop Azure Sentinel and drove it to over $1 billion of ARR. So Ely, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Absolutely, the pleasure is ours. So, Eli, I thought to start with a question about the beginning because Legion just emerged from stealth, aiming to solve alert overload and analyst burnout. Can you walk us through a specific moment in your enterprise security experience when you realized, you know what, that these SOC tools were not enough and we need to develop something else?
Of course. So as you were saying, one of the product management leaders for Microsoft Sentinel. And the customers of Microsoft Sentinels were security operation centers all over the world, particularly larger, more complex one. And I had the privilege to manage both the detection element and the response element. So detection, automation, some work on Security Copilot, some work on UEBA, a few other topics. And I got a first row seat to see the problem in real time. I knew that we were producing thousands, tens of thousands of alerts on one end, and we are not automatically investigating those same alerts on the other. I managed both elements. And I've just spent so much time implementing SIEM and SOAR with our various customers in the world. Just in terms of kind of terminology, SIEM is a kind of a log collector, an analytics layer. It collects logs from all security tools and produces alerts. And SOAR is traditionally a security automation solution, security orchestration, automation, and response. So I saw our detection on one hand produce a lot of detections, and then our SOAR, our automation on the other end, doesn't resolve them. And I noticed that this is a repeating situation throughout the industry. And it has a few root causes. Once you actually have to know your response processes to automate them. And that's already like a problematic assumption. It's not everyone knows exactly how they would respond to everything. Second of all, you need a team of engineers to build and maintain those playbooks, those automations. They take a lot of expertise that SOCs don't always have. And finally, most importantly, the decisions that you make in a security organizations are not deterministic. It's not like if this, then that. They have more nuance. And I've just been through so many implementations where we spend like months and even years integrating and building playbooks and building automation, just not getting where we wanted. And then when my co-founder Eyal came to us with the technology of Legion, which was, I mean, I'll talk about this in a bit, but it was just research papers at the time. Now it's more well known. My mind was just blown. This solves a problem that I've experienced, that I know almost every organization in the world experiences. It solves it in a complete novel and unique way. And the idea was just too powerful to not follow. We had to do it. And I quit my job at Microsoft not long after that.
That's amazing. And you mentioned the number of threats. I guess with all the AI boom, it just risen exponentially. I think even at Microsoft, there was a big breach recently about something to do with cybersecurity. So I guess Legion is a good place now more than ever. And we mentioned, of course, Microsoft, one of the biggest enterprises in the world. And you had the major part there, specifically in the Azure Sentinel. So how did your experience in such a large enterprise help you to catapult now Legion, which is a startup, and manage it even in the day-to-day?
In many ways. There are some ways in which working in Microsoft is not a great kind of primer to be in a startup because the way Microsoft sells is different than the way a startup sells. But what I had was a chance to work very, very, very closely with very large enterprises. And it's not only that I worked with them, I had a weekly or a bi-weekly meeting with them. I mean, the largest enterprises in the world. And not only that, at the end of those meetings, they said, thank you for your time to me. Because, to get Microsoft support on the phone is not that easy. So finally, you get directly to the product group. And I'm exaggerating, of course, but I got to see how real enterprises work. And there are a few things that we took from this. One,
That's amazing. And I think even all the Wiz co-founder, after their first company, when they sold it to Microsoft. And we actually hosted the Yanon Kostika. He mentioned that all of his experience at Microsoft actually helped them later on to catapult it to another level. And
it is so. I mean, you do get to see things that you don't get to see from other lenses.
yeah,
Like I mean, when you're a startup, if you get a meeting with Walmart, then you're excited and you get ready and you want to sell your product. When you're Microsoft, you have a bi-weekly with them for 4 years. So it's a different level of exposure. You get to start a call saying, what's bothering you today? And honestly, I wasn't trying to sell anything like at Microsoft. My job was to figure out what's not working, not what is working. There are other people to sell. I just was focused on making sure that we deliver the best solution possible and how can we attack it in every different moment. And this is a mentality that I took to Legion as well. I strongly believe that if we build a solution that customers love, the financial stuff would be fine. I know it's kind of not how I would talk to my board, but I strongly believe that. Like we need to build a solution that solves a real problem that customers love. And by the way, this is also the Wiz story, which we know personally. The Wiz co-founders invested in our company. So Asaf is an investor of mine.
that's amazing. And speaking of investors, I saw that, as they say, backed by the best, from Kutu to Axel to even Picture Capital of Danamiga. We hosted him in Ireland not so long ago, and it was super interesting. So I was just curious specifically about the beginning. When approach these folks, obviously high level, do you go with a prototype MVP or only with sort of like an idea, the research papers, and then they try to pitch to them? How does the process work at the beginning?
It differs from different companies and different experiences. My experience was really a bit different than others. We had the privilege of, we're a very, very well-rounded team for this approach. I and Michael, one of my co-founders, built Microsoft Sentinel. And our third co-founder was an AI expert, PhD from Cambridge, worked in this particular domain of vision models at a company in this space. So we were a very strong founder group with very strong domain expertise. And we already had an idea. By the way, not every Israeli startup has an idea when they raise their seed round, but we had an idea. Like we knew exactly what we want to do. We even had some proof of concept small that we did on the browser, but it happened really quickly. I think the last day of February was when we kind of quit Microsoft, and by the end of March, we had term sheets from a bunch of people. And I planned for longer. I planned for at least 6 months, if not working, but it happened a lot quicker. We were very fortunate to be able to choose. So we had a lot of offers, and we were able to choose who we wanted to work with. And I knew that I wanted incredible operators. It's my first company. I want to make sure I have someone like Dan Amiga or Mike Fay or Rakesh Nunka or Miki Budai with me to kind of ask the hard question and speak very candidly. We are fortunate to also have Excel, which is a top tier firm and someone we liked and wanted to work with. And the same went for the A round. We chose Cotu because of very strong operational experience, and we felt they can back us from now to IPO, and we wanted partners for the long run. So we were fortunate to be able to choose.
That's incredible. And speaking of your products as well, so it's very revolutionary because it brings essentially all the agentic capabilities to the SOC teams. But when you bring this kind of revolutionary product to all of the SOC teams out there and new capabilities that maybe they didn't have even before. Did they have any kind of reservation for implementing such tools at the beginning, or was it pretty straightforward?
No, it's a very interesting dynamics because on one hand, we work with organizations that are by no means early adopters. Just the onboarding process to their kind of compliance might take 6 months. It happens on one hand. On the other hand, they feel the pain more than anyone else. If you manage a SOC of a large financial institution or a large healthcare company, you have dozens of people that work 24/7. There's a lot of churn for them. There's a lot of repetition, and it's really hard to automate, so they're stuck. And yet they're very highly regulated. It's not like they could just kind of stop. So they feel the pain point more than others. Our solution, which, as I said, learns what customers do and adapts to their environment, is particularly helpful for them. Because the more repetition you have, the faster you learn. The more diverse your environment is, the better we are at it. And so our solution uniquely fits those large enterprises. And there is an interesting dynamics where you see in those companies, they understand that this is a problem. They understand that AI, maybe not Legion, but AI in general can help to do something with this problem. And they really want to test. So we, in many cases, find people in those companies that push really hard to test Legion, even ahead of schedule, faster than like compliance procedures usually take. And because in Legion, like I know that typically the strategy of most startup is to first sell to smaller companies and then move to larger companies. You start by selling to maybe other cybersecurity companies and think like friendlies, they're called sometimes. We started with kind of Fortune 50 companies, like right away. But it's because of the strategic understanding that this is where the pain point is significant and this is where we're most likely to be loved. So that's what we're doing. We're whale hunting with a rod, I think, is something that I've heard. But we're seeing a lot of success in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eli, I want now to talk a little bit about integration because we spoke with a bunch of entrepreneurs from the cybersecurity world, and all of them mentioned that integration is a key to success. One of them even mentioned that at the beginning the product was so good, but the integration lagged behind, so it stopped a little bit the momentum of the company. I was just curious, working now with Fortune 50 companies, how quickly can Legion be fully operational with all their security teams?
Minutes. It's incredible. I haven't explained how Legion works. Legion starts with a browser extension. You install a browser extension on the analyst browser, and we track using vision models how they respond. And using those vision models, we map their processes. And then once we did this, we are able to automate their processes. We do it through the browser as well. So you click run from your browser, and Legion starts investigating on its own. And only once you're confident, the third and final stage is to move all of it or parts of it to be automated behind the scenes, with or without human in the loop. This is the gradual kind of trust building that I've mentioned earlier. But it also means that Legion is just a browser extension. It doesn't matter if you're Fortune 1, like a small company, it's the same thing. You install the browser extension on the analyst browser, and there's no integrations, no APIs, nothing. And we just work with all your systems right away. And so it's very revolutionary in that sense. I don't want to paint a false picture, whereas like, for example, if you're POCing a product like Wiz, spend a few weeks gathering the integrations, the API keys, all the documentation, connecting everything, then you turn it on and it works right away. Legion is different. Connecting Legion to your system takes nothing. We could have installed Legion by the end of this call and you would be fully onboarded. But it's like a new employee. First, you train it, then you kind of watch it over the shoulder, and only once you're confident to let go, you start letting go. And how fast you're comfortable letting go, it's also your personal kind of opinion. So Legion installs in seconds, but you need a few weeks to train it to make sure that it's to the level. And if you're considering a Fortune 50 company, then their security standards are very high. I'm happy to say we meet them, but sometimes it takes a few days, sometimes it takes a few weeks. It's a matter of your risk tolerance and the level of repetitiveness that you have.
And I can tell you that many companies now are talking about all these agentic capabilities, but many of them give you something that maybe works, but it doesn't really study your own company. So what you do is amazing. And I want to emphasize this specifically learning part of Legion. This is very unique, the workflow process, but Are there any challenges to maybe adapt to different SOC tool chains or processes, or is it pretty much the same?
The learning mode for Legion is 100% generic. Like we don't need to make any adjustment for specific customers. It just works. The reason it's so effective is because if you consider vision models, most vision models were trained on the internet. Like this is how they were trained. So reading and understanding user interfaces is probably one of the largest data sets that those models have. So our ability to see a process, learn it, and map it, it's really hard development. It's not easy by any means. If you just kind of try to, use ChatGPT for it, it won't work. But it's a problem that we solved well. We are at a point where even if you have the same tool as different organizations, we almost don't care. We just learn the way you use this tool. Of course, we have some cross-customer learning to enrich all customers, but we haven't come across a situation where, this customer has like a tool that I haven't heard of and we can't integrate with it. Like that's not something that happens to us. The bigger challenges technologically are in later stages, in the automation stages. This is sometimes a harder problem to solve.
And Eli, I have one last question before we moving on to Amado. That is a bunch of fascinating questions to ask you. It's actually about bias because we speak about AI and bias comes with AI because sometimes people say, okay, it's based on what the program is trained on before, but how do you ensure it doesn't embed biases from, let's say, past analyst behavior or tooling, or is it exactly what you're trying to do to sort of understand what the analyst did and just make it better?
It's a really good question. We have several biases we need to protect from. One bias is built into the language models themselves. Language models were not trained solely on security data. They were trained on the internet, like a lot of available text. So if you just take an alert, give it to AI and say, hey, is this malicious? The AI would answer. It might hallucinate, it might say wrong things, but it would give an answer. And we found that the way to avoid and reduce hallucination and reduce biases as much as possible is by grounding the AI. So first of all, we don't ask it big question, is this malicious? We break it down to a lot of smaller questions that are grounded in specific tools. And we have the recordings that we did as it's called grounding, but basically as reference to the AI. And so here we're trying to complete this process. This is the job that we want you to do, this very specific thing. And here's how few analysts did it before. So this is a way to kind of reduce hallucination and reduce biases. We also do a high level of benchmarking internally. We have models that are benchmarking other models and a lot of work that was done to make sure that we don't have biases introduced into our product. The questions about inside the SOC biases, this is interesting because to some extent you want to learn by what happened before.
Yeah, biases is good actually.
In that sense, like if this IP keeps like being malicious again and again and again, maybe there's something there. Like maybe we should block it. Or if this server keeps producing alerts, so either it's malfunctioning or it's impacted. You want this kind of repeatability across the SOC. So it's a careful balance how to not kind of learn to be the boy that cried wolf, but at the same time leverage past cases. So this is a lot of the work that we've done to make sure that we're accurate. Our ultimate solution for this, by the way, we present our accuracy score for every decision all the time. We're completely transparent. Like we tell you in what percentage of cases did you agree with the AI or not, and we give you a breakdown. And before you choose if you want to commit a workflow to production, you can check the score and then decide. So again, it's the whole transparency and trust part of the equation.
Very revolutionary indeed. And Eli, I look forward to see how you keep break ceiling after ceiling. I mean, I see the dragon on the background, so maybe it will be helpful as well. And yeah, so Amado, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Eli, thank you again for coming on. Looking at Legion's product, something that I was impressed with was the interface, which is cutting edge and ahead of its time. But looking forward as attackers adopt to AI, how do you plan on staying ahead? Are there specific AI-based attack vectors that you're already defending against or expect to emerge soon?
AI-based attacks are happening right now. We don't need to wait for Skynet. And you can think of the simplest types of attacks there are. If you consider something like phishing, a phishing campaign, there's absolutely no challenge today with, scraping your LinkedIn profile and crafting an email that you are more likely to press than a generic email. And now if I want to do a campaign against your entire company, I can craft a specific email for each one of the employees. So in cyber, we used to call it phishing versus spear phishing. Spear phishing is when you go after a specific target. Right now we have spear phishing campaigns, like 1,000 targeted attacks. And the way to protect against this is the way we've been protecting against phishing. It's not different. You just have to do a lot more than that. You have to read every email very carefully. You have to see who the sender is, what's their reputation. You have to see if the email was opened and if the URL is malicious and if the file is malicious as well and if it was clicked and if there are other emails from the same domain. Like it goes on and headers. But it's still the same thing. You just have to do a lot more of it and a lot faster. And if an attacker does get a foothold in the network, the time it would take them to actually do harm can be minutes because they're using automation. So Legion is already allowing you to meet that scale and respond fast enough to be ahead of automated attacks. Now, the future would look different. Like right now, we're not seeing completely different attacks. We're just seeing more from what we've already seen. But if we start having, it's called polymorphic malware, but essentially malware that learns to adapt and change over time, we would need polymorphic defenses as well. So we would need defenses that kind of train over time. Legion currently is mostly workflow based, meaning we learn the workflow and there's decision making involved, but it is a workflow at the end. There is a process that you follow. The future would take us to be more and more non-deterministic, where if we kind of speed it up to the future, I think most of cybersecurity would be, AI attacker and AI defender kind of trading blows in speeds that we can't really match and in a way that we can't really read. We're very far from that. We're not there yet. And to get there, we need to collect data and we need to train ourselves. And this is what we're doing in Legion. But the future is very interesting. Security is going to look very different, in my opinion.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And that's actually, having worked in cybersecurity, it is going to be a high-speed warfare, but
Yeah.
Legion's already ahead of the game. So looking into the future again, autonomous SOC, security operations, do you believe the future of SOC could be mostly autonomous with humans supervising it rather than executing? You already somewhat touched on it, but just going deeper into SOCs.
The future of SOC has people in it. I don't think we're going towards an autonomous SOC where there's no people in it at all. But we have to think of those people as kind of like managers, shift managers or something like this, or an escalation point. A person who's today a SOC employee would be, I don't know, supervising 10 AI workers or more. And the idea is that we will have continuous feedback loops. So AI takes care of what's repetitive and escalates what's not repetitive to people. The moment more repetition is identified with what people do, the AI learns it as well and does more. And then more and more and more over time, AI gets more sophisticated and can take more advanced roles, and people will be there more to kind of supervise and to maybe, like join in the fight. And even when they join in, the people, AI will be there to help them. So it will be kind of a co-pilot for like IR and more sophisticated attacks. So I believe that the SOC of 5 to 10 smart people, not necessarily highly technical, by the way, people that know security and understand are passionate about security, but a SOC of 5 to 10 people with enough AI on their side can essentially scale to any size. We see today SOCs of like 100, 200 people. I don't think the future has that. People would be needed, but they will be needed in different positions. They won't be the first line. I think in the future, the thought that we use to triage every alert manually would seem preposterous. It would seem like, today we're like, we can't imagine that every time you picked up the phone, someone like connected the wire to actually do it. It's unimaginable, but it was the reality. This is how SOCs will be in the future. The thought of having first line defenders human would seem weird, and we would just have, those first few stages done automatically and people will, jump in to help when needed.
Absolutely. No, that really paints the picture. You spoke with Yossi about working at Microsoft and how mentally the sales portion was completely different than working at a startup. Another aspect in terms of identifying what you're going to work with, looking at hype, a lot of large enterprises are excited by AI agents. However, what's hype versus what's real? How do you differentiate the two?
It's really complicated and there's no good ways to do it. I'm afraid, except seeing the product and playing with it. I think it's pretty much the only way to see what's hype and what's not. I mean, I hope I come across as believable, but I hope people just play with the product and kind of and see for themselves. There are a few things that kind of, 95% of AI projects fail. Not in security, in general. There's statistics on that. Most of them fails. The ones that do succeed are usually around workflow automation. And it depends on what you're trying to do with AI to make it work. And some of the questions I'd urge potential customers and potential buyers to ask is try to understand exactly how it works. You're smart enough. It's not that complicated. If someone kind of tells you, no, this is a black box algorithm that I couldn't really explain on a call, don't believe that. Try to see if you can actually understand what's going on. Legion's solution feels like magic when you use it, but it really isn't. Like we see a repetitive workflow, we map it, we construct a graph out of it, you approve this graph, and then we start executing this graph. How do we execute it? We take what we understood from what you did, we package it as a prompt, and we give an AI action model the chance to do it through the browser. It's not easy. I wouldn't recommend that anyone tries to build it on its own, but I understand what's going on here. We see something repetitive, we do it again and again and again ourselves. There are solutions out there which, in many cases, are essentially pre-written playbooks, just packaged in a black box. We know how to investigate, I don't know, phishing very well. We've built a great workflow for it, and now we're going to run it in your environment. This I understand, but if someone tells me just connect all your alerts to my agent and it would figure out the best path forward and investigate correctly to an expert level decision making, I would question it. How? How does it know? How does it learn my context? What benchmarks do I know that it does the right step? Is there a series of steps it's guaranteed to follow or not? Like, where is this coming from? How do I validate it? Ask hard questions. And if you get the sense from a vendor that you're not smart enough to understand what they're saying, don't work with that vendor. That's not the right one for you.
For your advice, and for our viewers, what Ely said is very important. 95% of AI products fail. So looking at those core fundamentals is essential. Last thing about your job, your day-to-day job, before going to more personal questions, Ely, collaboration. Cybersecurity requires collaboration across vendors and verticals. Can you share how Legion works with other vendors in the market to stay effective?
We do work with other vendors. We haven't publicized like a partnership catalog. And this is also a weird thing for us because we work with everything. Like whatever you have, we work with. We've operated every tool out there from Wiz to Armis to ServiceNow to Microsoft to CrowdStrike to Palo. We operate all those tools. We just don't need an integration. So Legion works on the basis of the fact that your security stack is hybrid and we will meet you where you are. So we're very collaborative in that sense. And in terms of like legit partnerships, I don't know. We'll figure it out, I think, at some point.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now going into rapid fire questions, more about yourself personally. Mentorship on your upward path towards success. Who has been a mentor that impacted you the most, and what lessons stuck with you?
So one person I have to call out here is Ely Abramovitch. He was the general manager for Microsoft Sentinel. I worked in a company before called Indegy. It was acquired by Tenable, and I thought I had a job and I did it well. That's what I thought. And then I got to Microsoft Sentinel and I asked Eliav, okay, how can I help you? And he said, what do you mean? I'm here to help you. Your role is to make Sentinel the best product possible. Tell me what you need for me to make that happen. And this was eye-opening. He was very supportive. He helped us start Legion as well. So this moment of empowerment is something that like I take with me everywhere. And there's a lot of things I learned from him. Another person I have to mention is Roz Hertzberg. She's the CMO of Wiz, and she hired me to Microsoft before leaving. And I consult with her to this day. I spoke to her yesterday and the day before. We're friends, but I just really, really trust her opinion and think she's one of the best there is pretty much at everything, but specifically in product management and marketing. And the most important person in my journey in the last few years, there's a lot. There are a lot of people that I really look up to, but it's my wife. And my wife is a founder as well. And she's the CPO of a company called Zorro. And they're in the healthcare sector. You should have her at some point as well. And she's been like 3, 4 years in the journey. And she's just the smartest. But also she has my best interest in mind always. And every hard decision that I have to make, I go through her and I always value her opinion. And her and my co-founders are the closest people there is. I don't know if it's called mentorship because I hopefully am helping them as well, but those are people that like I wouldn't be where I am without them.
Amazing answer. Going through the grind, especially the early days of your startup at Legion, what's something that keeps you personally motivated through long cycles and tough setbacks?
First of all, the team. My co-founders, I love them and they're incredible. And the team is so dedicated and passionate. Even if we have a loss or like a deal that doesn't go through or something like this, I see everyone rallying, eager to learn, to understand what happened. This is great. The other thing is that the product is awesome. I mean, it's not without kinks. It's, we're an early company and there's more things to do. The roadmap is so big. We want to get to everything right away. But it's just awesome. I'm really, really passionate about it. When you see it working, there's a moment in the demo that is kind of very, very unique. And so I do encourage you to check it out, but it really keeps me going.
Absolutely. And outside of running the terrific product, Legion, are there any special hobbies or routines outside of work that help you to recharge?
I used to be a professional piano player. I used to live in New York. I was a jazz musician, and I still play to this day. It's one of like my most prized assets that I can appreciate and enjoy music and specifically jazz. So yeah, that's the one.
No, yeah, New York City is definitely a paradise for musicians, especially jazz, 100%. Lastly, if you weren't running Legion in an alternative universe, what do you think that you'd be doing? Any profession on mind?
I don't know. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I love product management. I was good at that, and it just wasn't enough at some point, but I love it. I could have a restaurant, maybe. I don't know. I love food. I love cooking. I grew up around restaurants, so that's maybe something that I'd give a try. But no, I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Running a restaurant with jazz every Friday, that'd be the best. But now, as a fellow
Mhm.
product manager, and no, I definitely understand. It's something that you have to love to be a part of it. Thank you for the wonderful answers. I'm going to pin it back to Yossi.
Right. Thank you so much. I mean, it's really been a pleasure. We appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to see how Legion keep delivering and break records after records. So thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. And for everybody else in the audience, stay tuned. We have other amazing episodes with the chairman of Qualcomm, and we just released an episode with Army CTO. So thank you so much.